Merhabalar. Tam 114 haftadır ülkenin ifade özgürlüğü gündemini kayıt altına alıp sizlerle paylaşıyoruz. Bu süre zarfında daha da beterini görmeyiz dediğimiz her seferinde maalesef yanıldık. Gelinen noktada artık hakimler ana muhalefet partisi liderinin nasıl konuşup konuşmayacağına dair bile hüküm kuruyor. İşte geçtiğimiz haftanın öne çıkanlarından bizim seçtiklerimiz.
President Erdogan filed a 1 million Turkish lira compensation lawsuit against Republican People's Party leader Kılıçdaroğlu, who said to him, "You are not an economist, you could only be the collector of a five-people gang, a collector who covets people's money." In the lawsuit filed against Kılıçdaroğlu's words during his party's group meeting, as well as his posts on social media, Erdogan's lawyers also requested that Kılıçdaroğlu be silenced as a precaution. The judge of the Ankara 16th Civil Court of First Instance signed an unprecedented decision and warned Kılıçdaroğlu about his statements against Erdogan as a precautionary measure so that he is more careful in the future.
The case of journalist Cemal Kaşıkçı, who was murdered in the Saudi Arabian Consulate General in Istanbul in 2018, has been closed in Turkey. As a gift of the government's attempts to normalize with Riyadh, the Turkish Ministry of Justice presented the opinion that it would be sufficient for the investigations to be conducted by Saudi Arabian authorities. After the approval of the ministry, Istanbul 11th Assize Court transferred the case filed to Saudi Arabia.
According to the results of the press screening we conducted throughout March, at least 177 people who exercised their right to meeting and demonstration were detained. Protest bans were declared by the governorates in 5 cities for various durations. 12 new lawsuits were filed for insulting the president and 1 person was arrested. In the finalized cases, 3 people were sentenced to a total of 4 years, 8 months and 17 days in prison. 20 people were acquitted of the charge of making propaganda for a terrorist organization and 5 people were sentenced to 4 years and 11 months in prison. Access to at least 27 news articles and 3 news websites was also banned in March.
An indictment was prepared against the People's Democratic Party's former co-chair Selahattin Demirtas due to a tweet he shared in 2013. A prison sentence of up to 5 years was requested against Demirtas, who was charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization and allegedly posting Muciserok Apo.
A lawsuit was filed against Evrensel Daily writer Ender İmrek on the charge of insulting the president for his column titled "Turkey is on fire, the palace is watching," published on July 31st. Within the scope of the case to be heard at Bakırköy Criminal Court of First Instance, İmrek is asked to be imprisoned for up to 4 years and 8 months.
A lawsuit has been filed against 2 environmentalists who participated in the vigil against the destruction of the trees in the Akbelen forest in the İkizköy village of Milas district in Muğla on charge of resisting the gendarmerie and insult. The vigil was started to resist the expansion of the lignite mine field that supplied fuel to a thermal power plant, and the environmentalists were attacked by the law enforcement on the night of August 10, 2021.
An indictment was prepared against Jin News reporter Rabia Önver for her social media posts. The indictment against the journalist, who was charged with making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to her social media posts, including those on the Roboski massacre and the commemoration of the murdered Diyarbakır Bar Association president Tahir Elçi, has been sent to the Van First Assize Court.
Second Criminal Chamber of Diyarbakır Regional Court of Justice overturned the 6-year 3-month imprisonment sentence issued by Diyarbakır Ninth Assize Court against Ayşegül Doğan, program coordinator of previously shut down İMC TV. The appeal court found that the conviction of Doğan, who was on trial for her meetings with the Democratic Society Congress executives, interviews, and events she attended, was unlawful due to incomplete research and establishment of a verdict on grounds that did not fit the scope of the file, further resisting that the tracking of meetings and events as a journalist cannot be accepted as evidence on its own for the accusation of terrorist organization membership. However, measures against Doğan, such as travel bans, are still in effect.
A lawsuit was filed against 71-year-old Aynur Gören, who lives in Mersin, on the charge of insulting the president due to her social media posts in the last 5 years. In one of the cases, the announcement of the verdict against her was deferred, while the sentences were suspended in 2 of them. Nevertheless, Gören was sentenced to 1 year, 2 months and 17 days in prison in the last lawsuit filed against her and went to prison for 1 day, eventually being released on probation.
An investigation was launched against 22 lawyers who participated in the press statement held by the Association of Lawyers of Freedom on February 18 at the Mersin Courthouse regarding Aysel Tuğluk's health problem. The lawyers were charged with violating the law on meetings and demonstrations and resisting to prevent duty due to the statement, which was prevented by the police with tear gas, batons, and rubber bullets.
The Hakkari Governorate banned all kinds of protests and demonstrations to be organized throughout the city until April 18th for reasons such as the protection of national security, public order and the prevention of the pandemic. Press releases, petitions, commemoration ceremonies, concerts, festivals, theaters, screenings, distribution of flyers and leaflets, hanging posters, and in short, every action and event that the governorate did not approve were banned in the city for 15 days.
30 of those who attended the Nevro celebrations in Bodrum were detained with house arrests. The citizens who were detained due to the slogans chanted and referred to the court with request of arrest were released on the condition of judicial measures.
On March 12th, 19 people, including children who participated in the press statement held on the anniversary of the 1995 Ghazi massacre, were detained with house raids. It was stated that the press statement that was read, the banners opened, and the slogans chanted during the event were the subjects of the investigation.
President Erdogan's son-in-law, Selçuk Bayraktar, filed a lawsuit against Halk TV and against journalist Shirin Payzın for a moral compensation of 150,000 Turkish liras. In the lawsuit filed at the Bakırköy Civil Court of First Instance, the questions asked by Payzın to the guest of the show, called Sözüm Var, Have Things to Say, became the subject of the lawsuit. The show was broadcast on February 16, 2022, and the questions asked by Payzın were about Baykar Technology Company, which produced unmanned aerial vehicles and unmanned combat aerial vehicles.
The Radio and Television Supreme Council fined Halk TV, KRT, and Tele1 channels which reported the sexual abuse of 7 children during a Quran course in Erzurum, following a complaint by the Directorate of Religious Affairs.
Access to the website of Jin News has been banned at the Diyarbakır 4th Criminal Judicature of Peace. Thus, the websites of the news agency have been censored for the 43rd time in total since it started broadcasting in 2017. Another news agency that was censored was Etkin News Agency. The websites of the agency, which were blocked twice this week with 2 separate decrees issued 5 days apart from each other by Diyarbakır 3rd and 5th Criminal Judicatures of Peace, have thus been censored for the 8th time since beginning of 2022.
The websites of Özgür Gelecek and Kızıl Bayrak Daily were banned from access with decrees issued by the Diyarbakır 3rd Criminal Judicature of Peace, and the website of Komün Magazine was banned from access with a decree issued by the Ardahan Criminal Judicature of Peace. Özgür Gelecek and Kızıl Bayrak were banned from access twice in the last week, and Komün Magazine for the 3rd time in the last 2 months.
The public scholarship of student Hazal Üner was terminated after her participation in the demonstrations organized in Antalya with the demand, "We cannot pay these bills. Cengiz Electricity Company should be nationalized."
The resistance of students and academics against the trustee rector continues at Boğaziçi University, while the pressure and punishments of the trustee rector continue as well. Finally, on October 6, 2021, Emrullah Yıldırım, one of the students who set up a tent in front of the rectorate building, was suspended from school for 1 week.
5 investigations were launched and 3 lawsuits have been filed against the Diyarbakir Bar Association since 2017, based on the statements they made on the anniversary of the April 24 Armenian genocide. A new investigation has recently been launched against the Bar Association. The Ministry of Justice granted an investigation permission in accordance with the Article 301 of the Turkish Criminal Code against former Bar Association Chairman Cihan Aydın and 10 members of the Board of Directors due to a statement made in 2020.
The Constitutional Court considered it a violation of freedom of expression and press freedom that the compensation lawsuit filed by former Republican People's Party Parliament member Haluk Pekcan against a local newspaper was accepted, and the newspaper was sentenced to pay compensation, claiming that his personal rights were attacked due to the news and columns published in a local newspaper in Kayseri regarding the polemic that happened in the Republican People's Party Kayseri Bünyan District Congress, which Pekcan also attended in 2016. Pekcan had filed a moral compensation lawsuit against the newspaper at the Ankara 18th Civil Court of First Instance, and the court had ruled the newspaper to pay 2,000 Turkish liras of non-pecuniary damages. Concluding the application on the subject, the Constitutional Court pointed out that imposing sanctions on the newspaper will result in the prevention of free and open discussions on matters concerning the public, and noted that this situation will seriously hinder the contribution of the press to the discussion of issues of public interest.
The investigation carried out by the Diyarbakir Chief Public Prosecutor's Office against 33 soldiers, together with the former Provincial Gendarmerie Regiment Commander Ismail Yediyıldız, regarding the murder of 7 people on November 24, 1991, in the Kulp district of Diyarbakir, was closed on the grounds of time limitation. In the investigation launched 18 years later regarding the incident, the prosecutor's office issued a verdict of non-prosecution on the grounds that the soldiers acted with the scope of a legitimate defense in 2017. However, the file was reopened in 2020 after the Constitutional Court had decided that an effective investigation was not carried out and the right to life was violated. Nevertheless, no action was taken in the investigation file for 2 years, and the file was left in impunity despite the Constitutional Court decree on the matter.
Gelelim haftanın adliye mesailerine. İşte bu hafta bizim eleğimizin üstünde kalanlar.
The first hearing of the lawsuit filed against 8 union executives, including current Health Workers Union co-chair Selma Atabey and former Health and Social Services Worker Union co-chair Gönül Erdem, was held at the Ankara 22nd Assize Court. The trial of trade union members will continue on July 4th on charges of terrorist organization membership and making propaganda for a terrorist organization due to their union activities, statements they made, and protests they participated in.
The lawsuit filed in the Aydın Second Criminal Court of First Instance against 3 students was concluded with acquittal. The students wrote on the blackboard at Aydın Adnan Menderes University for university student Enes Kara, who committed suicide and left behind a video about the pressure and future concerns he suffered in the community house he stayed in Elazığ.
The trial of journalist Rustem Batum continued at the Istanbul 41st Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of insulting the president due to his statements during a TV show he participated in as a guest in 2015. The court adjourned the hearing to April 20th, giving time to the prosecution to present its opinion on the merits.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against the owner, managing editor, and editors of previously shut down Özgürlükçü Demokrasi Daily was held at Istanbul 23rd Assize Court on charges related to the news published in the newspaper about the Afrin operation conducted by the Turkish Armed Forces. The prosecutor's office presented its opinion on the merits and requested that 6 of the defendants to be penalized on charge of terrorist organization membership, making propaganda for a terrorist organization, and printing and spreading terrorist organization publications. The hearing was adjourned to June 14.
The prosecution of lawyer Nevzat Ercan continued at Iskenderun First Assize Court on charges of resisting to prevent duty and misuse of duty by reacting against his client being beaten by police officers in 2019 in Iskenderun. The next hearing of the case was scheduled for June 2nd.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against 12 women who were detained during the protest organized in Izmir on the murder of Pınar Gültekin was held at the Izmir 47th Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of violating the law on meetings and demonstrations. The hearing was adjourned to June 21.
The latest hearing of the lawsuit filed against 9 people, including students who wanted to make a statement in front of the Istanbul courthouse for their friends who were detained during the protests of the trustee rector appointed to Boğaziçi University, was held at the Istanbul 22nd Criminal Court of First Instance on the charge of resisting the police. The hearing was adjourned to June 7th.
The retrial of Mümtazer Türköne, Şahin Alpay, Ali Bulaç, and Mehmet Özdemir, whose verdicts in Zaman Daily case were overturned by the Supreme Court of Appeals, continued at the Istanbul 13th Assize Court. Presenting its opinion on the merits, the prosecutor's office demanded that the journalists be penalized on the charge of aiding a terrorist organization without being included in the hierarchical structure. The hearing was adjourned to June 28.
People's Democratic Party Izmir Provincial Co-Chair Berna Çelik, who was on trial for terrorist organization membership for participating in a press conference organized by the Free Women's Congress against the massacres of women, was acquitted, objecting to the decree of the Diyarbakır Fifth Assize Court on the grounds that there is no clear, conclusive and convincing concrete evidence. The prosecutor's office brought the file to appeal.
The prosecution of 38 people, including People's Democratic Party parliament members Tayyip Temel and Pero Dündar, continued at the Diyarbakır Second Assize Court after the decrees issued against them in the KCK main case were overturned by the Supreme Court of Appeals. The hearing was adjourned to September 29.
The prosecution of 27 parliament members, including former People's Democratic Party parliament members Osman Baydemir, Ahmet Yıldırım, Besime Konca, Nadir Yıldırım, Selma Irmak, and currently parliament members Alican Önlü and Dirayet Taşdemir, continued at the Diyarbakır Second Assize Court after their files in the KCK main case were separated due to their parliamentary immunities. The prosecutor's office presented its opinion on the merits and requested for the 27 defendants to be penalized on the charge of managing a terrorist organization and terrorist organization membership. The hearing was adjourned to September.
Bir hafta daha böyle ardımızda kaldı. Yetmedi diyenler için daha fazlası her zaman olduğu gibi internet sitemizde. Haftaya buluşuncaya dek hoşça kalın.